All right, I gotta get started on the show. I gotta get started on the show. There's so much show to be had. Good morning. Hi. It's Wednesday morning. It certainly is. It's of all the Wednesdays this week, this one is the most Wednesday. Crazy. I mean, there are mornings when I wake up and I look at sort of what's trending on social media or what's trending in the news or what's kind of popping to the top of the discourse, as it were. And very seldom do they involve a false flag Russian attack on the Kremlin using what looks like a small piñata filled with fireworks being chucked at the roof of the Kremlin. Or dropped out of the sky at it or something. Thank you. I'm glad you like my Columbo shirt. Ma'am, just one more thing. It's probably the dubious nature of the news this morning that is making me made me want to pull this one off the rack. Because I try to not put too much thought into my clothing, as you probably know. I go on impulse and that's it, because I think the brain has a max capacity. You certainly have max hard drive space. You certainly have a limit on recall and that kind of stuff. And so the less effort you put into those kind of things, the better. It's one of the reasons why I think Einstein had 5 outfits and then one he just kept through the weekend while somebody else did laundry. I have my sort of gray man outfit when I'm out in the world, but when I'm, the morning show, I wanted to dice it up and start unveiling and, quite frankly, getting all my novelty shirts out of Deep Six where they had been, which is my code for a bin, and wearing them again. Hitchcock wore the same suit every day. Exactly. So the idea is that you want all your mental effort, all the oxygen that goes to your brain towards creating something better and blah blah. And by the way, don't think for a second that I have it. Hold on, I have to put in my headphones because Philip Ittner will be joining us in the second hour, and there's a air raid. Excellent. There's an air raid. There are air raid sirens going on over Kiev right now because of this. I'm just going to say it. False flag by Russia in a desperate attempt to because they're in and this is my theory, and see if it works. And by the way, hi chat room, want to bring you guys in on this as well. Thank you, Alyosha. I'm trying. Remind everybody what a great streamer I am and spread the word, please. Thank you. All right. You never liked Columbo? He's lovely. Can you sing the El Paso? Sing the song El Paso sometimes? Sure. Yeah. So yes, Russia's failing, so they have to play the victim. I agree. So the idea is that they know they're going to lose. They're expecting the counteroffensive from Ukraine. They know they're going to lose. They don't have the people or the organizational skills or the military cajones to succeed. So what do they have in their back pocket? A bunch of over-the-top missiles, namely tactical nukes and other shit that they could probably pull up and let loose because, oh my God, how dare they, right? And we were going to fight fair and square, but we had to pull a gun because we were going to get our ass kicked, is the idea. And but you can't just straight ahead do that and admit it because it's an admission of weakness. And so what you do is you fake an attack on yourself. The Nord Stream was one of those. This is yet another. I look forward to Seymour Hersh's article about how Jimmy Carter and the National Guard and the CIA and 2 people who worked with Ed Meese in the 80s talked to a Mossad and had them arrange for Ukrainians to fly bottle rockets into the Kremlin. I can't wait. Anyways, so that's where it's coming from. By the way, interestingly enough, false flag is one of the biggest things trending on Twitter right now because of it. That's the problem. When you lie all the fucking time, it's hard to... these things don't have the impact they used to. And I'm going to save most of this when it comes up, and if we see it in the trends, I'm going to save it to the second hour so we can talk it over with Phil. So I just want you to know that there's a lot of details about that stuff coming, and I want to hold it till the second hour because it literally he's there. If he can make it. I hope we're good. Fingers crossed. It should be all right. Yeah. So that said, I just want to say I spent the morning trying to, like, I don't know.
I had a beat off.
Trying to better the show, I guess.
Michigan gave us Motown, gave us the Mustang.
I put a bunch of my sound effects back in. So, and it's unlike the other software I was using, which is sort of like drag and drop. This is like 9 steps per button. So, yeah, Phil is stashing his drone remote. I don't doubt it. Yeah. So, the only one I couldn't get to work was nuclear sock piles, which I think it's the format. So I've got to change the format of the audio from it's the wrong thing for the button to work. It won't do it. I tried to find a workaround.
You could say it's a back door, but I call it a smart door.
You know what I mean? Like I tried to get around the edge of it. Ficus will be back. Don't worry. Cupcake is not alive right now, but I'm working on that. That's piece by piece. Man lai, as the Chinese say. So let's take a look at a couple things. One, right out, look at false flag is the top trendy trend on Twitter this morning, largely because it's there's Malcolm Nance calling this horse shit out. Sergei Semleny is saying, thread, I think the Kremlin UAV attack is a false flag. Here's why. Several videos in high quality and color appeared from CCTV cameras. Right. Well, that's the thing. Like, they're like 4K video from what's supposedly like a camera across the street. Right. Which is obviously shit. Although I will say the USSR at one point, because they were so big into surveilling their own people, they made some damn fine lenses for their CCTV cameras. They made a lot of them, a lot. So, well, shit. Hold that thought. I'll be right back. I want to show you something. So nerdy stuff, but I have this older model Blackmagic camera. This is just this is it in a shell. It's basically, you have to put a cage on it to hold any of the stuff because it's not strong enough to hold normal size cinema lenses. But it's a very good camera, and it's old, and it was very cheap, and you can get these like used, and they're as good as almost any camera being made today. It's funny, there's a certain point where your eyeballs top out and like, all right, everything's getting a little too crispy, guys. And so what happens is everybody tries to roll back and go, that's a little video-y. Can we make it a little more filmy? Can we give it that kind of like warmish look of old lenses and the like? And one of the ways you can do that is you get these piece of shit old CCTV lenses from Russia that are for either 8mm or 16mm, depending on your adapter, and then you can attach them, and they're all fixed lenses. So there's none of them have like like they'll have a focal ring, but they don't have a zoom on them or anything. And they're just for shooting what you get, right? But they bokeh, meaning they have these little like circular light prisming effect that goes through the lens. So then the lens goes through, because of the shape of the lens, it makes those little like bubbly round lights. And some that you see in really kind of, I don't know, like artistic looking moments, romantic moments in film. A lot of the street lights will look round in the background. Sometimes you'll see a different kind of a cut on a lens or multiple lenses because of the focal setup. This is rough but the different pieces of glass in there will create a different shape. So you'll see like a hexagonal, like a pentagonal shape or something. The lights won't be round; they'll be they'll be square, or they'll be like a pentagon, or you'll see like a lens flare, which will be really spiky. That's what you look for in an artistic lens, anyways. So I ordered off of eBay 3 of these lenses for shooting some stuff a while back, and then I started shooting all the sexy liberal stuff, which is just basically video, and didn't have really a moment where I could use these. But this is for like doing music videos and the like, and they're gorgeous, but not on purpose because they're kind of shit, honestly. But these, let's see, isn't that the aperture that makes that effect? Yes, it is. But it's the shape of the glass and how it's like the lead coating on it and that kind of stuff makes it like, it creates, each one's unique. Each one has a different like color scheme to it, or a LUT effect that's built into the lens because it's real. It's a piece of shit old lens, and they're and none of them are alike. So a bunch of these folks, like people will buy like boxes because the Soviets, were all about, looking at it, we're all about, hold on, let me see if I can take this guy off. We're all about surveilling their peeps, right? Hold on. Get out of here, you crazy thing. There we go. So you can, there's the, so people will just, like real fancy filmmakers, will buy a shit ton of these things and just go through them and find ones they like and throw the rest out because they're relatively unusable. Hold on one second. I've got to line this guy up. There you go. To put it back on. So yeah. So anyways, this is I've had this camera for 7 years, 8 years, something like that. And I started like getting because I think all 3 of these were like, when I got them, were like $200 for all 3 of these lenses. And some people, like I said, crazy filmmaker types will buy, they'll order a bulk order from Russia back in the day. This is before everything else, all the stuff's gone down. Like 5 years ago, that was the thing. People were just buying these fucking things up because, like I said, Russia did nothing but surveil their populace for so long that they made, cameras that would zoom in on everything so that they could see stuff. So it's not surprising to me, by the way, that, and I don't disagree that this is a false flag, but the idea that the CCTV cameras are high quality and in color is not that surprising in Russia. The interesting thing, though, is not so much the fact that there's color in them, that the color is very vibrant. It's that it's corrected color, because the cameras, if you want a camera for security, you don't want a lot of, I think anyway, so theoretically this would be you don't want a lot of color inserted into the image because that takes out some of the detail. You could fix it later to put that color back in. But if you look at like, raw camera footage on some of the Black Magics or some of the like the Reds or whatever, they take the color out so that you can get more depth in the light picture. I'm speaking very slapdash, but the point is you put the color in and make it vibrant after the fact. Now you can do that fairly quickly these days, thanks to AI and thanks to, if you've got even a shitty version of DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Premiere, you could throw a LUT on that and off you go. But in this particular case, the idea that they have color pictures is not that weird. Kremlin gladly confirmed the attack within a few hours. They never do it, preferring to look stupid, not preferring to look stupid, not humiliated. Okay. Remember all the stories about the flagship Moskva sank because of the storm, and it was a fire because of smoking on a missile attack. Now it's different, right? Yeah, it's weird that they would be like, oh yeah, the Moskva, that was just an accident. I don't know what you're talking about. It was clearly hit by a missile. And they were like, no, that was somebody was smoking near ammo, oops. But this one, they're like, oh my God, we've been attacked. This is the footage, by the way. And there's these two guys climbing up on there when this thing hits the flag, which looks like honest to God, the pyro at a Kiss concert is more convincing. Like, there's a period where Ace used to do it back in the day, but Tommy Thayer does it, where they fire a rocket out of the guitar during the guitar solo, and it hits the thing in the rafters, and a light falls down and barely dangles from some wires like he shot it out of the rafter. Yeah, it looks like that. It looks almost exactly like that. So these guys, by the way, here's what I think. You want to know what I think? Here's this thing, this foot. Boom. I don't know why there's audio on this from this person's house, because you're not hearing anything. Here's my theory. They set up their false flag, and they're going to set this thing up, and they wanted to hit the flag and do an explosion and make it look all, oh my God, they're trying to attack Russia. They even hit the flag, but it might catch the roof on fire. So let's have two firemen up there to make sure. Let's have two guys up there with fire suppression just to put it out in case it spreads. But the idea is you want to wait until after it hits. Make those guys sit there for a second. Two unmanned drones have apparently hit the Kremlin. I disagree, unless I mean, they're going to have to produce a body or lack thereof before I buy it. And by the way, don't forget, subscribe. It's Hal Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 a.m. And then, of course, in the afternoon show, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. approximately every single day, except on Thursday, where I do it at 4 o'clock because I have family FaceTime an hour before that, and I'm not moving my schedule around, when it would mess up the rest of the family's organizational life. So, and then Saturdays, of course, the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, and I'm just everywhere. I'm everywhere all at once. And I want to welcome all the right-wing trolls that have been revisiting us. It hasn't been a lot to watch on their channels lately, so they're kind of roaming again. So welcome back, guys. You helped us reach 50,000 subscribers. We're very proud, and you'll help us get to 100K. Toot sweet, I have no doubt. Okay, here we go. Breaking. Before we rush to any conclusions, remember that there's a ton of propaganda being spread around Eastern Europe. This could be a myriad of things, such as a false flag operation and an attack by Ukraine, a deep fake video, something completely different, and now for something completely different. Just because Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin make a claim, it doesn't mean it's true. I think we can take that to the bank, Ed. Just because you see a video, that doesn't mean you know the context. This is also true. Be aware of that shit online. Both the Ukrainians and the Russians have been putting out propaganda, so it's important to wait for the facts before rushing to judgment here. Oddly enough, yeah. They're calling it an assassination attempt on him. Well, like I said, I think I'm going to hold this until we talk to Philip. Hump Day is trending. You're welcome. Halfway to the weekend. Look at that. Oh, I see. Oh, right. Hump Day. I have to keep scrolling because sometimes this is filth. Sometimes Hump Day entails a bunch of that kind of picture. Not that I'm against them. It's just, weird. Good morning, Patriots. Let's destroy Wednesday. There's a guy. Oh, this is the guy who starts the car up and gets a face full of smoke. Happy Hump Day. Right. He's blocking this thing. And yeah, that's funny. Red pandas. I've seen red pandas up close when I was in China. No. Oh, God. Do not. What the, Why did I didn't need to see that. I did not. Yes, happy Hump Day. Welcome to Hump Days with Hal. It's Hal Sparks Mornings, Mega Worldwide. And it's always and by the way, the Doge world has been set on fire by AI art. They've just this is what they've been waiting for. It's not gonna change shit, but they They really are like they consider it winning. All right, there's a poll. Marjorie Taylor Greene is talking about this is I think might be the poll about like 75% of the people who are going to vote for Trump think that he won in 2020. That's part of this thing. There's these this stuff right here. Dean's got it up. Russell, join me live today as to discuss Facebook's $725 million security breach. Why hasn't this been covered by the news in the same way as Fox's $787 million payout? Plus, we take a look at RFK's poll surge. Is it a threat to Joe Biden? No, it isn't. Surge. Why would and again, why I don't even know why this $725 million security breach hasn't been covered in the same way as the Fox's. This is just fucking stupid. Kyle Chester is about his recent use of strike, and Dan Chandler starts how to get money out of politics. Jesus Christ. Ugh. Barf. Although I suppose there's something I could learn from the methodology by which he brings people to his audience. Of his live stream and that kind of stuff. Maybe. I don't know. His, considering he's got millions of people supposedly watching his show, the amount of engagement, I see that or better on my end. It's almost as if his millions of subscribers are fake or something. Let's say this isn't surprising. We know Trump won in 2022. We know there was blatant cheating. New poll shows Trump beating Biden head-to-head. Right. Tennesseans support red flag gun laws. But the government, the legislature and the gun lobby doesn't want them to be able to do anything about it. The most outrageous excuse for a federal judge. He said he can't retrieve documents that were requested in a defamation suit filed against him by a Georgia poll worker, Ruby Friedman. Ruby and daughter Shay Moss have faced a trial. Oh, okay. Giuliani gives most outrageous excuse to federal judge. Outrageous. I would go with embarrassing, Midas touch. 59% favorability with all voters. Totally. Hits record high favorability ratings. The Black Mat collection. Look at that. It's like Antifa wear. It's like Antifa formal wear. Yeah, this is the Trump makes you feel. 49% who said they're not voting for Trump in the primary said he makes them feel exhausted. 32% say he makes them feel empowered, but they're not voting for him. 29% say they make them feel confident, but they're not voting for him. And 29% worried and exhausted seem to be eating up a lot of that space. Interactive voters for the YouGov B+, Biden 45 to DeSantis 42, Trump 46. Biden sure. Yeah. I mean, the poll stuff is we'll wait till we get closer to the actual primaries. And by the way, Zelensky's trending because he's in Finland right now, as if he would be out of the country when they send in an attack like that or whatever. I think is false flag or Prigozhin. Those are my two choices. We'll talk about that with Philip Ittner in the second hour. U.S. Navy, I think, is trending because of the, U.S. Navy appointed active duty drag queen in diversity drive to boost sinking recruitment. So, Putin must travel is very the old U.S. Navy new digital ambassador whose role is to get more recruits. Any warships from Russia and China roll up and the Navy be like, I get it. We're so lost. The new digital ambassador is a drag queen. Oh my God, they're gonna get everybody to join it. By the way, nothing infuriates and Iran sees a second oil tanker in a week amid U.S. confrontation. This is weird too. Okay, so I don't know if you guys know this, but the Navy is not policing like certain oil shipments anymore because we're not doing the work for China. Now, and there's a lot to catch up to this, but let's jump in. Okay, this weird thing about, like, he's fucking this up. Iran seizes a second oil tanker in a week amid U.S. confrontation. U.S. Navy says several Iranian vessels approached the tanker in the Strait of Hormuz and forced it into Iranian waters. U.S. Navy says several Iranian vessels approached the tanker in the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, so the idea is that Biden is letting Iran seize oil tankers. This is a interesting. I watched this one channel called What the Ship, which talks about international shipping and blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Iran seizes tanker. Because you're going to love the story of these ships. Okay, so here you go. This is continue. I'm gonna continue to say okay. There. Okay. So, Iran has seized a second oil tanker in a week. Here, let me pull this up right here. This is on Wednesday in Gulf waters, the U.S. Navy said the latest escalation in a series of seizures or attacks on commercial vessels in Gulf waters since 2019. The Bahrain-based Fifth Fleet of the U.S. Navy said the Panama-flagged oil tanker Niovi, and this again, you're going to love this. It has a Panamanian flag, was seized by the Revolutionary Guard Corps in the morning while passing through the narrow Strait of Hormuz. In Iran's first response, Tehran's prosecutor announced the oil tanker was seized on a judicial order following a complaint by a plaintiff. The judiciary's Mizan news agency said no further details were provided. Yeah, what? Okay. But here it is. Okay. The incident comes after Iran on Thursday seized a Marshall Islands flagged oil tanker, which, by the way, a lot of ships fly the Marshall Islands flag as kind of semi-neutral, like to keep them out of the international politics. But anyways, in the Gulf of Oman, called the Advantage Sweet, which is an oil tanker for sweet crude, that kind of idea. That tanker is being held by Iranian authorities in Bandar Abbas, the Marshall Island Flag Registry said on Tuesday. Maritime security firm Ambry said it believed the Advantage's Sweet seizure by Iran was in response to a recent seizure via court order by the United States of an oil cargo aboard the Marshall Islands tanker Suez Rajan. So they were getting around sanctions, and we seized one. So they're seizing these other boats, which are not carrying American oil, not flagged in America, not they're. The most recent one is Chinese owned. The crew is Indian, and it's flagged in it's registered in Panama. But that'll show America. Let's see. Right. Okay. So, according to International Maritime Organization shipping database, the Niovi's owner is Grand Financing Company, which is a Chinese company, I believe, if it's the same boat. And the ship is managed by Greece-based Smart Tankers. They manage it, which did not immediately respond to Reuters' request for comment. About a fifth of the world's crude oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow choke point between Iran and Oman. Let's see. The 2019 attacks on shipping and tension between the United States and Iran. Indirect talks between Tehran and Washington to revive blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Okay. So that's the ship. Because we seized one of them. Rudderless while Iran seizes tankers and China continues to launch warships, the U.S. Navy is becoming a laughingstock as they train sailors on the use of pronouns to promote drag. Yeah, so everybody's just going to attack the drag queen thing. Because Iran is seizing Panamanian and Marshall Islands tankers that are owned by Chinese companies, managed by Greek companies, and staffed with East Indians. So that's fun. Yeah. U.S. Navy says a Panama flagged oil tanker in Strait of Hormuz. Second ship taken by Tehran. There's I'm trying to find somebody that will list the entire. Iran seizes tanker China. Maybe this will do it. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, this is the second one. This is the funny part. All right. That's the Advantage Suite. There it is. Iran seizes Chinese oil tanker, raising questions about the two countries' alliance. Do you know how far I had to fucking jump down and to get past 10 or 12 fucking links to get to this thing? Iran's seizure of a Chinese-owned oil tanker in the Gulf of Oman on Thursday signals that even Tehran's closest allies are subject to its malign behavior. Experts told the Washington Free Beacon. Hold on, let me try and blow this up. I thought this story was fucking hilarious. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, the country's paramilitary fighting force, routinely harasses American ships in the region, intercepted the China-owned oil tankers that made its way through the Gulf en route to Houston, Texas. According to Lloyd's List, a London-based shipping journal, the vessel is reportedly carrying 750,000 barrels of Kuwaiti crude oil and is chartered by Chevron. Iran's brazen seizure of the ship is raising alarm bells with regional experts who say Tehran's terrorism has gotten so out of control that not even China, a close ally of the Islamic nation, is immune to its escalating provocations. Beijing is the biggest buyer of heavily sanctioned Iranian crude oil, importing at least $22 billion worth since Biden took office. China has long served as a lifeline for Iran, especially since the U.S. reimposed sanctions on the Iranian oil industry. Was this a miscalculation from Iran, or has Iran become so brazen that even its close ally China is not immune? I guess not immune would be what they mean. Just last month, China brokered an agreement with Iran and Saudi Arabia. No, they didn't. They held the signing ceremony. The UN and Iraq brokered that agreement, which is already... It seems peculiar that Iran would then look to seize a tanker owned by its largest trading partner. The imprisoned ship is registered to China's Puyan Financial Leasing Company Limited, which is based in Shanghai. According to Lloyd's, the tanker is managed by a company based in Turkey, another country that has maintained generally good relations with Tehran. Iran's claimed that it had seized a Marshall Islands flagged oil tanker in Gulf of Oman after it collided with an Iranian boat, injuring several crewmen. 2 members of the boat's crew are missing, and several were injured due to the collision of the ship with the boat. The United States military, which is a frequent target of RIGC harassment and confrontation in the Persian Gulf region, is reportedly monitoring the situation via its 5th Fleet. So the argument, if I understand it from the right wing, is that Iran seizes a Chinese-owned, Greek-managed, or Turkish-managed, depending on which boat we're talking about, but both of them are owned by these 2 Chinese financial groups out of Shanghai that are taking Kuwaiti oil and circumventing, going through the Panama Canal, and because they don't want to come around India, more than likely, and bringing that oil to China or trading it up is, I suppose, the other option. It's hard to say because it doesn't really say in the articles. That because we're not protecting Chinese vessels the way we used to, this is a sign that the Navy sucks. It's very curious. Let's see. Iran released a video of the RIGC driving away a U.S. Navy vessel that was entering the Persian Gulf. U.S. Navy operator was forced to talk in Persian. Oh, dear. He was capable of speaking Persian. Good for him. Iran seized a second oil tanker amid U.S. confrontation. That's what the U.S. Navy says. Several Iranian vessels approached the tanker in the Strait of Hormuz and forced an Iranian. Is this mainstream media? Why not? Why is the mainstream media not covering these 2 ships in the Iranian area? It's just silly. Openly stated as choke off oil supply to China through the Strait of Malacca in event of war. Aframax tanker Pablo blew up in international waters near the Strait of Malacca in South China Sea. Maybe U.S. wanted to send an explicit signal to China with okay, so that's the other false flag idea. Carl Jha is saying this. Carl, what's your problem, Carl? Silk and Steel. Podcast on China, history, culture, politics, steel something, and he's living in Bali in Indonesia. For those of you that don't know, let's go to the hold on 1 second. Go back to here real quick. Pablo tanker. And it's funny that all this shit is happening behind and you're not really like, there's a whole genre of news around shipping in the world that most of us, except when the supply chain gets gacked up don't pay all that much attention to. Let me show you the Pablo situation, if I may. This is tankertrackers.com Inc. That's a no, wait, is that May 2nd? This is a different one. It's a Aframax, Phoenix, where is it? Pablo, there it is. This is the same dickhead. Did the U.S. just blow up Aframax tanker Pablo of so-called Dark Fleet in South China for sanction busting? Pablo known to carry, no. They did not. Close-up of a Gabon flag tanker Pablo shows that it's empty. Experts will probably claim Pablo explosion likely due to accidental gas leak due to poor safety standards of African nations such as Gabon. Perfect cover story for U.S. op. Get the fuck out of here. I guess it's the CIA of the gaps concept. When in doubt, if anything happens and you don't have an explanation, the CIA did it. I mean, you're never going to not be able to make a buck off that idea. How difficult is it to sink a modern commercial ship? Just think of the explosion that ripped approximately 500 feet of steel. The main deck of the 96,000 tons under the Pablo tanker. It's still afloat, right? Carrying Iran's exported oil was attacked near Singapore. As a result, 3 of its crew members went missing. Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency is searching for them. So this is the idea is that they're part of the dark fleets that are sneaking Iranian oil to China, and they got hit by somebody. More than likely an attempted hijacking. Yeah, there you go. It's a tanker on fire off Singapore, South China Sea. This has been, flagged in Gabon, and that's the Pablo. That's this ship right here. And then, could this be retaliation for the U.S. blowing up Iran-linked Aframax tanker Pablo in the South China Sea? The Pole Lady. Sure. Current affairs and geopolitics. Sure, why not? I'm sure this is not computer generated at all. It seems like the U.S. will do anything to keep the U.S. dollar supreme. Blowing up one fucking ship wouldn't do it, dummy. Sad goodbye to freedom of navigation on international waters if this news is true. First of all, it's not true. And the truth is, this is a result of the U.S. not giving free coverage by the Navy to other countries, not protecting their ships. Without the U.S. Navy there to protect these ships all the fucking time on behalf of China and all these other countries, because they don't want to use their own navies to protect their own shipping lanes. We've been doing it forever. It's why we have as many Navy bases as we do all over the world. Because we are protecting shipping lanes. That's what we did. That's Bretton Woods. That's in exchange for, siding with us against the Soviets in what could have been a nuclear war. We'll protect your shipping lanes. The U.S. government doesn't spend trillions of dollars on defense because it makes America or the world safer. They spend trillions because it makes some people richer, including those in Congress who get kickbacks paid for with your tax money. This isn't the only U.S. graveyard. This is national wealth rather than what's left of it. Who has the money? Okay. You don't turn over military planes after they're past their prime. You park them and use them for training, or you park them and use them for parts, or you park them and just hide them. You can look at them, but you don't get to use them anymore. They're decades old. This is not weird at all. You know what the difference between this and, say, Russia or China is? China just dumps theirs in the sea. And then the U.S. has rules about where we can dump our waste as far as the government goes. Corporations, that's another thing. Paid for with your tax money. Jesus Christ. Why don't you show me trolley cars from the early 1900s? Hindus for hire, heads they win, tails you leave. Look, Soros is even pulling the strings in India. A U.S. couple, Jew husband and Hindu wife, runs 2 fronts respectively, one for Israel, one for India, both funded by Soros, both promoted by Islamists, both use human rights as cover objective to run conflict industry. This is the poll lady is retweeting the Disinfo Lab, investigating info warfare and Psywar. OSINT, big data, data journalism, not associated to any other disinfo or .org. Okay, yeah, because you're really just an underground anti-Semitic propaganda site. They sell empty bottles, remove sugar to make it healthy. What? Oh, I see. Whatever. I think that's supposed to be a joke. A lot of stuff about India on this lady's site, whatnot, and then the occasional douchebag thing, and then BlackRock, of course. Yeah. The face and the body. Okay, yeah. So it's interesting who dives in there. And there is, like I said, an entire substructure of news and information that none of us on the regular give a shit about. But can you imagine? Let's see. Let me look up one more thing, and then I want to show you why the comparison is hilarious. Okay, let's see. As of April, there are 810. Here you go. Hold on one second. As of April 2020, there were 810 very large crude carriers, VLCCs, worldwide. Oil tankers, also known as petroleum tankers, are paramount for transporting oil from... Okay, blah, blah, blah. Duh. VLCCs have a storage capacity of around 2 million barrels of crude oil. In 2020, seaborne transportation of crude oil amounted to 1.86 billion metric tons. Seaborne trade capacity in the past decade has been a notable rise. The capacity of oil tankers, combined storage capacity, reached 601 million tons deadweight in 2020, which is an increase of over 150 million tons deadweight compared to 2010. Let's see. There's 810 very large crude carriers, 668 Aframaxes, of which the Pablo is one. One of 668 had a fire on board, was attacked or something happened, and the other 667 are chugging right along every fucking day. The Suezmaxes are 571, and then there are these little ones, the 83, these small dirty tankers, naughty. And then the dirty Panamax, which sounds like a condom brand that I would not recommend. So, so these are the different kinds that are out there. The vast majority of them are these VLCCs because you're shipping a liquid and it's expensive and it takes a lot and all that kind of stuff. So one of the second class of ships, this is an Aframax, not the VLCC. One of them didn't sink, had a fire on board, but Aframax tanker Pablo, before and after explosion which blew off the entire deck, vessel dimensions, they had an explosion on board that blew the deck off. Oil tanker with a history of shipping Iranian oil catches fire off Malaysia. It's a 97 ship. It's flagged in Gabon. 25 crew members rescued, 3 missing. It was on a trip from China to the United Arab Emirates. And God knows there's no space where regular incompetence or a fire could have occurred normally. It must be the CIA. The CIA is testing their system on the Pablo because they need to figure out how to not sink a tanker. Were they going to slowly but surely take them all out of commission while still leaving them afloat? Like, this is fucking goofy. Anyways, it just reeks of this. I sometimes dive down into these weird news web holes. It's very strange. Happy birthday, Eileen. Look at that. It's my birthday along with Frankie Valli and James Brown. It's so much in common. Singers where oftentimes it can be difficult to understand what they're saying. So yes, happy birthday indeed. And I just think it's fascinating. Accidents never happen. That's a scientific fact. Exactly. It's all you don't understand. It's false flag stuff. And this was days ago. But the idea is that the U.S. Navy is not policing Chinese ships anymore because we're too busy being, supporting drag queens. Boats everywhere. Thousands of boats heading out to sea for Fort Lauderdale Air Show. Awesome air show by U.S. Navy's Blue Angels. This is true, too. U.S. Navy P-8A Poseidon, likely as a wizard in orbit just off the coast of Virginia. Possibly working with some surface assets for anti-submarine warfare training. Cool. Detailed truth of UFO footage released by the U.S. Navy. Kevin, the Navy radar chief, testified the truth for the first time after retiring from the Navy. Good for him. That's great. Something very strange is happening at the White House. Ooh, very exciting. An untold number of people in uniform came in and others stood outside at attention for 30 minutes. U.S. Navy 2 and 1 left for escorting someone. Black and white bus. Jail. Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah. It's not a Occam's razor. That would be I would jump immediately to that. Biden's probably been arrested, probably taking him down to Guantanamo for his 9th hanging. Angels fly higher. It's so true, isn't it? Should we check her out? Should we check out Timur Angel? Timur Angie? Timur! I'm totally a real person. The kids are the future. Breaking active shooter situation. Shots fired. Fox 13 building. Voice of Memphis, Tennessee. Right. That was one person fired into the place. Nobody was hurt in that one. That happened yesterday. 20 freight train cars derail in Russia due to explosive device in region. It's weird. Why? What a weird fixation. Why would you kind of give a shit about 20 freight train cars in Russia derailing? Angels fly higher. I mean, I get. This is very QAnon. Oh my God, Apple, it's like made in China, y'all. Look at this. Look at it. Pfizer. Oh my God, Pfizer. With active ingredients from China. This is totally like, oh my God, Advil equals Pfizer equals made in China. I'm not eating that shit, y'all. Ireland, if you get vaccinated in Ireland, sudden death is possible side effect. Vaccine side effects include, because somebody put that shit up in their window. Russian President Vladimir claims that 95% of the world's terrorist attacks are orchestrated by the CIA. Oh, interesting. I think we might have stumbled on something. Can I show you guys something? This is always fun to do. Copy, and then we'll go over here to the search, and then we'll go up to here, and we'll put, actually, we want just a regular search? Yeah. We'll put this in here, and then I'll paste this in here, and then watch how many. There's Pat Webb says exactly the same thing. So does Janeway. So does Eat, Love, Pray Too. So does, word for fucking word. Jamie McIntyre, there is, just posted, did they get a fucking memo every day? It's weird, isn't it? When you see the exact same wording, that doesn't strike anyone. It's just kind of cut and paste. So hump day. PrEP is trending because PrEP, the anti-HIV medication, is posted, and the word PrEP without a lowercase r also boosted it. And it's partly because apparently this person said, I'm really disappointed by the number of mutuals not on PrEP. I'm not. Does anybody know what the mutuals? Mutuals? I don't know, whatever. Anyways, it's a lot of like back and forth about people who aren't taking PrEP and should be, and yada yada. And this is a crazy lady banging her head until she knocks herself out in a hospital bed. That gift's been around for a long time. Probably finally ready. Oh. So proud of our team today. After months of research and prep, we're finally ready to launch our the 4-second car wash. Early users are raving. Well, I honestly, I couldn't be more impressed if they paralleled. Yeah. So there's a lot of like, there's game prep, and then prep the drug, and then prep versus PEP, post-exposure prophylaxis. Which, all right, I see. There's people making that distinction. Good. I think that's a good thing. I think the existence of PrEP is a great thing. Ukraine-Russia war, we'll talk again, like I said, in a couple of minutes. As a matter of fact, I've got to open up my page so that when Phil comes in, I'm able to bring him in. Hopefully we will have easier times than we have had in the last... Yeah, there we go. Enabling my mic. Turn on my virtual camera. Could not start videos. Camera's already... Oh, all right. Let's go back to here. There we go. Okay. Seems all right. I'll put this over here. And then hopefully when Phil comes in, we'll be able to grab him. And all will be well, I think. This is... We'll go back to some of this bullshit. We'll definitely cover. There's the drone supposedly coming in, as drones do, slowly. And then it strikes. This is like the bubs, whatever. In Russia, near the Crimean Bridge, an oil depot is on fire after being hit by a UAV. Is that another one? Yeah, that's a different one. That's not just the tankers. That's the oil depot. Oops. And there's news that that Putin has put out a kind of pamphlet for dealing with the loss when Russia gets its ass kicked, which is a fascinating turn of events. Putin's assassination attempt as Kremlin's residence is attacked by drones. The attack has been announced 4 days ago, and it was laughed off by Russia. Both drones were down by Kremlin air defenses. Sounds like a big tactical mistake by Kiev. What? Make peace now. Alternative news. So, free thinker, pro-peace, anti-mainstream media lies, anti-imperialism, anti-globalism, pro-Russia. No, anti-racism. We sanction ourselves. Drain the swamp. Jesus Christ was right. That's this. And they've got 81,000 followers on Twitter. Kremlin claimed it stopped a drone attack on his presidential home. Okay, this is 4 hours ago. Yeah, should we check out this dude as well? This is in the UK. He's a journalist with a mustache. Totally real picture, by the way. We should toast to good news that there was no climate change in the last 9 years. See the ups, and in some years they're canceled out by the next years. All right, yeah, there you go. There's a video of it. It looks like the attack on the Crimean Bridge. This is a big mistake. Now Russia is entitled to bomb Zelensky's bunker. Stupid. I see. Or you could be a gullible asshole. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. Many brilliant ethnic Chinese scientists in the U.S. are moving back to China. In 2021 alone, the number was 1,400. 2 reasons: rampant xenophobia in the USA. No. Standard of living in places like Beijing and Shanghai are now better than the U.S. China is calling their people home and not giving them much of a choice. At least 2 Tupolev bombers to just take out the new smart bombs. Russia seem to be resounding success. Oh, that's good. So, totally pro-peace and anti-imperialism, which is why you would cheer on bombers. What? By the way, bombers sent to attack a country that was attacked. Not to defend yourself against being attacked. Unfortunately, Ukraine is now entering a new phase. Relative to don't understand why their husbands and sons who have been trained are put on the front while IP fighters are sit in the war. Solution is surrender? Whatever. Solution, surrender, right. How many Americans know that NATO has been arming Ukraine since the war started in 2014? Everybody. They were attacked. The war didn't start in 2014. Russia attacked them in 2014. It seized territory. Of course they were helping, stupid. CIA Director William Burns warned in 2000 Condoleezza Rice that NATO expansion into Ukraine crosses Moscow's red lines and could split the country in two, leading to violence or even some claim civil war, which would force Russia to decide whether to intervene. The CIA Director... Oh, the same guy who hung out with Jeffrey Epstein? That's weird. 1997, 50 promised U.S. Senators Bill Bradley warning that NATO expansion... NATO expansion! Why is Ukraine allowed to burn its own citizens alive? Oh, okay, so yeah, this is a UK outlet for Kremlin propaganda. Yep. If you're you don't care about the civil war going on, which killed 100,000 people, or what about the Iran-Iraq war, which killed 1 million people? Certainly the Congo civil war, which killed 5.5 million people, or at least the drug wars in Mexico, which killed. We are the UN has been engaged in all of these things. and also the internal civil war. And again, what's the trick that's happening here? And this dickhead is a great example of this argument. This guy. Oh wait, Phil's with us. Hold on one second. Let me bring him in a moment. Phil, can you hear me? See if
Yep, I can. Can you hear me?
I do indeed. And give me one second. I will bring you in. I was just showing everybody. I'm going to move into studio mode. The turn this on, turn this off, and then grab your link and bring you in. Hold on one second. He's getting
somebody's trying to call me. Apparently,
you're very popular.
Yeah.
You can take it if you need to. I can hold.
No, that's okay. I'm going to turn it off. No.
Okay.
No, spam.
I got you. Okay. Even over there. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show.
Ooh.
There he is, Philip Ittner. Hi, Phil. Welcome to the show. Lots going on this morning, and I was just, because of the false flag this morning, I was just looking through some of the tankies and their ilk on, who are messaging all over the place. And one of them brought up this thing is like, if you care about the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but you don't care about the Guatemalan Civil War or the Cambodian Civil War, then you don't care about human life or something. Which we're not talking about a civil war between Russia and Ukraine. It's just a war. Russia just attacked another country. It's not a civil war. The idea that they claim territory and then while laying claim to it, can then say from some point on that they hold on, let me turn this off anyway. Okay. I don't know, that it just makes up it makes a false comparison between these two battles. The idea is that why don't we give a shit about people's internal conflicts as if it wasn't an attack? It's an interesting bait and switch.
It is, and it's also to compare. Look, I don't want to diminish the importance of places like Guatemala or Sudan, but what we're looking at here is a war that will fundamentally change the landscape of the European continent. And it's also going to have wide-ranging global ramifications because as we've discussed, I think that there's a real risk to Russia's its stability, because this is going to be enormously damaging to them, because they can't wrap their heads around who they are if they are not an empire.
Right.
And then you're right when you talk about it is a civil war as opposed to an invasion. I mean, the Russians consider this a civil war, actually, because they think the Ukrainians are just Russians who have gone astray and been seduced away by the naughty West. They don't even recognize the fact that Ukraine is a sovereign nation. So they do see it as a civil war. Ukrainians will tell you differently, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it's that I think that is a really weak analogy. I mean, this is pitiful. A hugely different situation.
There's a reason why that they're selling that. Yeah, because it's quite frankly, there just is no better false equivalence where you can just shut down people who care about peace, because that's who they're going after. They have a different tack for going after the right wingers. When they go after left wingers on this stuff, that's why they floated the use of the word warmonger. That's the purpose. Whoops, hold on one second. Yeah. And there we go. So anyways, welcome to the show. At Philip Ittner on Twitter if you want to follow Phil, and he's got vlogs that he's filming while he's there. And obviously the breaking news this morning is this alleged drone attack with the two guys who were climbing up to the top, I guess, to set the charges on top of the Kremlin.
And what good luck that the camera was framed just perfectly.
I know. Yeah. And in such vibrant color. And it's almost as if you can notice the TV station stands that are put up on the road in front of it for the May 9th celebration that's coming up. It's like the timing is spectacular.
It's not even marginally artful anymore when it comes to propaganda and information warfare. I mean, now maybe this is for domestic, consumption. Maybe this is, people have speculated it's a false flag because they intend to do something egregious. Now they have an excuse.
Right.
But I don't know who did it. The Ukrainians have said it would be counterproductive for us to do it.
Right.
Not least of which because we know that we couldn't get Putin this way. And also we are reliant on our Western allies and our global allies. So why would we take such an enormous risk for such a small,
especially while Zelensky's in Finland, where they could go, well, Finland just joined NATO, and we could use this as an excuse to attack Zelensky in Finland and double down on blah blah, like that kind of horseshit. It's just like tactically, intellectually, it beggars belief. It's garbage. And especially how ineffective it was.
The idea then that goes to the idea of, is it a false flag? I don't know if there's enough evidence for it to be a false flag either, because it's possible, but actually striking, they could have picked a better target to strike. The Kremlin is not. It's not a good look.
No,
it's not a good look for them domestically. It shows weakness, domestically and internationally. It shows weakness. Right. That your defenses aren't good enough to protect your this symbol of Russian power. Right. That's the seat of government. Don't let anybody tell you that the Duma or the White House is the seat of government in Russia. It's the Kremlin. So, for them to have done it to themselves, I think there's the risk. I would be surprised, because striking at the Kremlin is a really, really bad thing to do. And
it reeks of
strong negative side for the Russian government. So then there's the talk of, was it internally partisans? Was it Russians who weren't, who are anti-Putin? And they did it. But then it draws into question the fact that that the camera is perfectly positioned. And there's people walking around on the dome, and the drone there's geo-blocking on Red Square right in front of the Kremlin. You cannot get a Google Maps signal. You can't fly a drone that flies by anything other than just line of sight. So there's just a lot of questions. But one thing I think we can comfortably say is that it was not the Ukrainian government. Maybe it was Ukrainian separatists Ukrainian guys acting on their own and not going rogue. That's, who knows. But for it to have been the SBU, the Ukrainian intelligence, or any kind of Ukrainian military, it's counterproductive. So no, it was not the Ukrainians. It was certainly not the Ukrainian military or government. It was into Putin's hands. It's just.
But JFK Jr.'s official says that he says it's official. Like John F. Kennedy Jr., his official blue checkmarked Twitter account. I know he's been dead for a few years, but he's got his own official Twitter account, and it says 2 Ukrainian drones attacked the Russian president building, and Putin was in it. Follow for updates, right? And Putin was in it. It's adorable. I'm
so over all the tankies and all the guys.
I think they're over their own shit at this point.
Yeah, it's just, guys, can you not accept the fact that Russia is a malign actor? It's right. It's not. I don't know where we get to this point. Is it this desire for nothing bad happens in the world if America is not involved. Right. It's this weird kind of America-centric, America first mentality that goes so far beyond looking at it domestically, but that everything, there's a CIA agent behind every tree. Of course. And obviously America is such this incredibly powerful, smart, omnipresent, capable. It's a kind of superiority complex that goes beyond, because they're critical. Oh yeah,
it's a very weird version of American exceptionalism. This also I don't know what is it, de-anthropomorphizing or dehumanizing when they go basically like, we're the only, conniving humans on the planet. Everybody else is an innocent antelope, incapable of even the depth of thought and in this. And if they just were left alone, everything would be,
if you could just remove America from the globe, everything would be fine.
Right. And I mean, I showed it earlier, but there was a tweet that's been making the rounds that says breaking. Vladimir Putin says that 95% of the terrorist attacks in the world are caused by the CIA. And you're like, the dude was in the GRU. He was in the KGB, dumb fuck. KGB. Of course he's going to say that.
I mean, I've been covering this part of the world for 25 years, quarter century. I've been covering this part of the world. I've seen the Russians do some fucked up shit, really fucked up shit. I mean, vile, awful stuff. Putin bombed his own apartment building to rise to power. That's how he got into the seat of government. He killed a bunch of his own people in a bunch of apartment buildings, slaughtered them. It was awful. It was. I went to the apartment buildings back in, I guess it was 99 or 2000. It must have been. No, it was 99 because he hadn't acceded to power yet, as he did when Yeltsin abdicated on the Y2K.
Right.
Anyhow, I've seen Russians do some real and under Putin, but also just Russian authority and Russian reassertion of power. Trying to regain control of a collapsed Soviet Union, and always seeing America as the enemy. So striking out at America at any chance that they possibly could, or American interests, which. We can debate geopolitics all you want, but their technique has been to undermine democracies, undermine societies. They're very good at absolute disruption. And then assassinations and manipulations of nation states and putting nation states warring against one another because they still see things through this Anglo-American world as opposed to the Slavic world, and there's just the CIA has done a lot of screwy, fucked up things. Absolutely, 100%. There's no question in my mind. I've seen the result of it. I was in Iraq. I was in Afghanistan. I saw all sorts of shit. Libya. You take a pick, but it doesn't mean that the GRU and the Russian Empire doesn't have the capacity to do really fucked up shit. Ask a Georgian, ask somebody from the Baltics, ask somebody who lived through Prague 68. I mean, Jesus, it's just when can the tankies get to a place where they can look past their hatred of America and hatred of the West and their self-loathing or whatever it is that motivates them, and recognize that it's not mutually exclusive. The Russians do all kinds of fucked up stuff.
Right.
Cruel, brutal, evil stuff.
Well, and here's and again, there are things when the American people find out that our military does fucked up stuff, we get very angry, and we have our committee hearings, and we overcorrect almost in our response to them so much that because we think they are indicative of the greater conflict as a whole, or all soldiers or whatever. And so there's this, it triggers a bigger backlash against American, intervention anywhere, which you can see that post Abu Ghraib, I think, was a turning point. And My Lai, for example, are two things that people would trace back to, like, well, America doesn't need to be anywhere near these points of conflict because all we do is terrible shit. And then as soon as we leave, the Wagner group and all those people come in and start slaughtering pregnant women as sport. Yeah. And
because as someone who has been shot at by Al Qaeda and Iraqi insurgents, whether it was the Sadr Brigade almost killed me, several times. Al Sadr's brigade almost killed me several times, and it's hard to understand what it's like for when somebody tries to kill you, and you're in a war zone and they don't play by rules, but you're expected to play by rules. This is by no means, I want to preface all of this by saying this does not justify anything, but you can understand the breakdown of military discipline and all the rest of it. But I know I was eyewitness to U.S. command going, we can't do that shit because it's counterproductive.
Right.
It actually works against our interests. And so when we found, and this is why the pardoning, and I'm going to completely gap on the guy's name. It doesn't really matter. The American soldier that was pardoned by Trump. Do you remember this? He was like, knifing people in the head and stuff like that. And his entire unit was like, get this fucker out of here because he is screwing everything up. But because there was this whole macho bullshit by a bunch of armchair generals who've never heard a shot fired in anger, who were like, no, our boys have every right to kill every, Iraqi and even the rest of the unit was like, no, this is bad. But a bunch of guys sitting there who've seen Rambo one too many damn times,
which isn't possible, by the way.
Well, okay, fine. Who've seen
Wolf Warrior 2 or Raw Deal.
Right. I mean, or some god awful, Seagal thing where you think that there's this visceral response to like, I'm not going to play by the rules. I'm going to be just as vicious to them as they are to me. Our military generally has been smart enough to realize that's counterproductive. In the case of Abu Ghraib, of course, of course they tried to cover it up. I mean, because that's what, it's not a surprise that they tried to cover it up. But I know that there were officers, high-ranking officers. Gutierrez, at the time who was the commander, spoke to Dan Rather, and Rather told me directly that Gutierrez said to him, thank you for exposing Abu Ghraib. He thanked him for it because you got to improve. You got to catch these things out.
And Russia make sure they don't happen again because they're counterproductive. This goes to the whole there can be a broad consensus across the entirety of people who had different feelings about the Iraq and the Afghanistan wars, for example, that when you torture people, they will tell you what you want to hear, and therefore that information is useless. And if you're torturing innocent people, that's going to lead to more terrorism and more violence against you, which is also counterproductive, especially if you plan on leaving one day and you want that country to be able to stand on its own without eating itself alive. So the idea that I think Cheney, when Cheney heard,
is not stupid.
No, and when Cheney heard that if you torture these guys, they'll tell you whatever you want to hear, he was like, good, tell them we want to hear this. And then they would use it as further justification. That's what awful people do. And it's why almost like most Americans, if not all, are against it, with the exception of Dick Cheney and some of his closest buddies. So, but in the Russian context, there is no limit on that. None. They're like anywhere. That's the weird part. Like the idea that there is very strange because they brag about the horror show. In a way, like you can say we hide our horror show or we try to avoid it because we think it's going to fuck with us, in our greater mission and blah, blah, blah. And you downplay things like that because it's not indicative of the greater whole of what's going on, or at least we don't think it is. And therefore, we want to push back against it. There's an argument to be had that that's what goes on when you try to cover up shit like this, both in the military and in police departments. It's wrong, but you could see why good people would make bad decisions to try and do something like that. In the case of Russia, they're not even entering that territory.
To circle the wagons and deal with it internally.
Right.
I've seen that a ton of times.
But when it comes to Russia, it's just like, nah, fuck them. They had the sledgehammer coming.
Yeah, I mean, so I looked this up. I found the guy's name and it jogged my memory. This is the Navy SEAL guy, Eddie Gallagher. Who was like, he was torturing and murdering people with knives, and I mean, he was a psychopath. He was an absolute psychopath, according to his according to his own squad mates.
Right.
And so what happened was he was put through the military court, and he was found guilty, and he was locked away. But then this bravado and this lack of understanding of how detrimental that is to a war effort, Trump pardoned him. Juxtapose that with a guy cutting off another human being's genitals, filming it, putting it on social media, and not only is he not punished, he is actually lauded,
praised for it.
I mean, that's the Russian side of things. I mean, it's there's no comparison there. So I get frustrated with the false equivalency. I get frustrated with those who want to blame everything on
right.
the West, on the Americans, on CIA, whatever. It's just, I've had enough of it. I'm sick of it. And I'll be glad when Ukraine kicks the shit out of Russia and we can all go home.
Exactly. The one big piece of news that is happening is, and it's got to be very weird for the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world, is that Kevin McCarthy was asked about, America flagging its support for Ukraine, and he was unequivocal in his support. Ultimately, he didn't back down, and he was like, no, we support what's going on over there. We support our NATO partners. Like he's definitely looking down the barrel of an actual career in politics, where he actually has some sort of a record to run on at some point. As dumb as he is, he can at least see that writing on the wall. And that's very upsetting to the tanky crowd who thought that, Marjorie Taylor Greene picked him because he would run interference. Also, there is a giant fire at an oil depot in Crimea.
An oil depot, trains being derailed. First, just quickly to touch on McCarthy and Taylor Greene, who doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. McCarthy knows that I think. I can't pin. I haven't been to Washington, so I don't know. I haven't been up on the Hill. I don't know what intel they're getting, but I will bet you dollar for donuts that there are a lot of people who are clued in who know that Ukraine is going to give Russia a whooping, a real hard whooping, and the Ukrainians are going to win this war, one way or the. Even if this offensive doesn't go well, which I don't think will be the case. I think Ukraine is going to do some real serious damage to Russia very soon. And McCarthy knows that. And I think that he knows that you want to be on the winning side. So Marjorie Taylor Greene can jump up and down and talk about spending and this is Russia's war. This has nothing to do with us. When Ukraine wins, and we have defeated Russia for very little cost, and Russia will have to lick its wounds and maybe look in the mirror, as we've discussed many times. And I ultimately, I hope this will be beneficial to Russia, because they'll put in the past their imperial designs.
Right.
McCarthy knows that's you want to be on the winning side. Taylor Greene hasn't got a fucking clue. So that's that whole thing. But to go back to the oil explosion, the train derailments, ammo depots blowing up inside Russia, this is accelerating as we get closer and closer to what I think will be the actual offensive. Now, I think the actual offensive, and don't hold me to this, but if I were a betting man, I would ballpark it. In the third week in May, maybe to the first week in June, that sort of thing. That would be. I have seen. I was. So I had my 53rd birthday this weekend, and on Monday, May 1st, and I went to a little villa outside of the city so that I could get some fresh air, and they spent some time with friends, and we barbecued and all the rest of it, which you can't do, in an urban setting. Right. But as I was returning, this is like a suburb, like a almost rural part of the greater Kiev area. I was driving back, and I tried to get a snapshot of it, but unfortunately I didn't move quick enough. There was a train that I saw moving into Kiev, probably to some sort of staging area or some sort of repair depot or some sort of storage depot, with dozens and dozens and dozens of our M113 armored personnel carriers, which is kind of a Vietnam era. They call them the box here in Ukraine. They call them boxes because they have a very boxy thing. But they're just, I mean, they've got armor. It's good enough. It's good enough to prepare, to save your guys from shrapnel, and you move in combined arms. There were dozens of these things moving along. And there's been recent video released of, I don't know if you saw this just today. There was a release by the Ukrainian military talking about the HIMARS. They've created this guy, Saint HIMARS. Because they're very good at trolling the Russians.
Yeah.
And it's this guy in he's in Ukrainian uniform, and he's just covered his face, and he's modulated the voice, and he's sitting there going, I'm Saint HIMARS. You guys have not destroyed a single one of our HIMARS system. And they showed the bunker where they're storing these things and hiding these things. And he was like, we're coming for you. And they've been very good about that, the Ukrainians, in their preparation for the upcoming offensive. And that's what I think all these explosions are. Those are shaping. In a battle, you have a shaping phase where you try to manipulate your enemy's strong points and weaknesses and probing and all that kind of stuff. I think that this is exactly what that is. You hit an ammo depot close enough to where your frontline guys now have to pull from a supply chain further afield from the front lines. You're taking out fuel so that your tanks aren't able to maneuver, your armored vehicles aren't able to maneuver. This is all calculated. This is all about shaping, in my opinion. And I think we're going to see the Ukrainians launch relatively soon. And it's going to be intense. It's going to be really, really intense. And we're going to catch it in the neck as well, because the Russians are going to reply with, a lot of, if they have the capacity. But yeah, things are about to get ratcheted up, because I don't think the Ukrainians want to go into a third year of war. I think they know that the international support, while solid and will be there for years to come, when it comes to the war effort, there needs to be clear gains demonstrated, because the West has been piling money and weapons in here, and they want to see a result. Now, if it turns out that the offensive doesn't go well, and there isn't a massive seizure of land, or there isn't some sort of significant defeat of the Russian forces, the war will continue. The Ukrainians will not stop fighting this war until they have their borders back. Right. The question, of course, is Crimea, but we've discussed that many times before. But this offensive has to work, and the Ukrainians know it, and they're not going to go off half-cocked.
Yeah. Real quick, there is
that's what we're seeing inside Russia, I think.
Right. There is a new piece of news. Hold on one second. That what's his name? Ilya Ponomarev, who's a former Russian State Duma deputy. He's saying that he knows who did the attack personally. He goes,
is this just now? Because
this just now coming.
Yeah. Talking.
Yep.
Okay, what's he saying?
He's saying the Russian oppositionists, hinted that the attack on the Kremlin was the work of Russian partisans. Former Russian State Duma deputy Ilya Ponomarev, who lives in Ukraine and cooperates with the military wing of the Russian opposition, said that one of the structures he knows is related to the drone attack on the Kremlin. The politician made a statement in a comment to the Sota Telegram channel without revealing any other details. Ponomarev asked to wait for the full statement, since now he is not authorized to disclose the information known to him. It should be noted that earlier, Ponomarev claimed that he helped the perpetrators of the murder of a propagandist, Daria Dugina. He also circulated a statement by a certain National Republican Army which claimed responsibility for the murder of Russian military officer Vladlen Tatarsky. That's the dude who murdered a bunch of people in the Bucha area, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and who was found and killed. And then they talk about what was there. So the idea is that this guy's been talking to he's saying he's talking to
that makes the most sense.
It does.
I mean, that makes the most sense that it would be Russian partisans who are anti-Putin partisans, because they wouldn't give a shit about how it looks on the international stage.
Right.
The Ukrainians aren't going to do it because the only two options I really see are Ukrainian rogue elements, which I don't think. I'm very doubtful of that as well.
Yeah, especially in the lead up to
the whole idea
offensive.
of Ukrainian rogue elements is you don't have to be rogue. There's plenty of stuff for folks to do and do it under the umbrella of the
that would actually help
Ukrainian armed forces, which would actually help
tee things up. Right.
I mean, crazy things happen in this world, and sure,
one of them would be this kind of thing.
It's interesting to hear that because I do think that's the most likely possibility here is that somebody.
Whether he's telling the truth or not, whether he's full of shit or not, I agree. This is in relation to the fire you were talking about here. The fire they think was a drone attack. Tank with oil product caught fire near the port of Taman in the Krasnodar territory, which is near the Crimean Bridge, which is one of the fuel depots where they bring these vehicles across and then fuel them up. And it's a crucial space. As the governor of the Krasnodar territory, Veniamin Kondratiev, said on Telegram, the fire occurred in the village of Volna. It was assigned to the highest rank of difficulty, meaning it's a huge fire and hard to put out. What caused the fire, the official did not specify. Telegram channel Baza clarifies that the fire could have been provoked by a drone attack. And provoked is a weird word to use. Head of the Temurak district, Fedor Babenkov, said that the area of the fire was 1,200 square meters. That's a big fire. That's a very big fire. That's a big fire.
The plume from it was enormous.
Yeah. Explosions in Russia and the occupied Crimea.
There are anti-Putinist Russians inside Russia. There are certainly infiltration groups from the Ukrainians that are inside Russia. This is, again, I don't, not to keep harping on it, but things are going to get really nutty very soon.
Yep.
This is going to be an intense summer, or spring, well, what's left of spring and then into summer. And it's going to be now. And look, I've been warning about this for months.
Right.
That this was going to be, this is going to be probably one of the most decisive moments of the war, seasons of the war. And by extension, one of the most decisive moments in kind of this in world history, because what happens between Russia and Ukraine is going to affect so many other different things.
Yeah, there's a story.
Get ready for that. That's coming.
Yeah. So there, Russian Telegram channels are also reporting these outside of Crimea. There are these Russian border guards in Simferopol in Russian-occupied Crimea. That basically it's kind of not unlike where the oil depot is as far as its strategic worth. That have been hit. They are on fire as well. Radio Liberty reported that the photograph shared on social media can be used to geolocate the site of the explosion. It occurred at the former Border Guards training center near Jabanak Gully in the vicinity of the village of Shkilne. I suppose, several kilometers away from the Simferopol airport, which means it's a holding ground for both troops and stuff. Yes. And again, near the report that a fuel storage tank was burning in Kocha Bay. These are all tee-ups, I think. This is what you do before you come in. You gut their fuel sources. You gut their response time.
Fuel.
Yep.
Yeah,
and then
command and control. Yeah,
right. Meanwhile, back on in Russia, a small hangar is on fire. I don't know. Like Russian media reports that in Gostilitsky airfield in Leningrad region, a fire started in a hangar with helicopters equipment. They say was evacuated. They assume it's sabotage. And again, that's in timing with the drone hitting the Kremlin. I'm just saying, the idea that it would be flown from someplace outside of there makes a lot of sense, and St. Petersburg is not out of the question.
Good drones. The Ukrainians have developed a really impressive drone program, but most of them are meant to target medium distance kind of stuff. Shooting up into Leningrad, which is St. Petersburg, is and also the drone that we saw hit the Kremlin. That was not a large. That's hundreds of miles that we're talking about here. no. But the other thing that had struck me, by the way, and it just occurred to me, we hadn't talked about it, was the fact that the Russians can get all bent out of shape because somebody tried to kill Putin. But we know that there were hit squads inside Kiev at the beginning of this war. There were planted hit squads that had one goal, and it was to kill Zelensky. Right. And they were and like we're talking like a handful. So we're not just one or two hit squads. They foiled a bunch of assassinations.
Yeah, like 5 or 6 groups that they caught. Right.
Yeah. Right. They were intended to kill, one group didn't do it. Another group might have been able to do it. They wanted to assassinate Zelensky. So I don't know where they get off being all bent out of shape, because the Ukrainians, arguably in their perspective, right. And I'm saying they, by that I mean the Russians, the Ukrainians can't try and kill the Russian president. I mean, he's a fair target as far as I'm concerned. And I'm sure many Ukrainians would agree with me. So,
right.
Anyhow, the whole Kremlin thing is just no.
Right.
No, the Ukrainians did not try to assassinate Putin by shooting a drone.
Right. A drone full of bottle rockets. Like, come on,
man. Yeah.
And by the way, can I just say that, like, this time last year, and I'll bring this up on the screen in a second, but this time last year, the beginning of this whole fight, the idea was that Russia is going to cut off oil to the rest of the world. The U.S. and our allies don't have enough production to handle any of this shit. Oil is going to hit $200 a barrel. I heard that 1,000 times in 4 months at the beginning of this bullshit. And on and on, and I kept saying, no fucking chance. The mitigatory aspects of Western society, one of the things we're trying to do is cut down on our use of oil and gas, specifically for consumer base, so that we can dial back our need for it, so that ultimately it becomes a commodity without a home in terms of the Western world. And oil today, I'm putting this up on screen. There you go. There you go. There, just say, 68.83. It is below $70 again. And it'll vary around 70 for a little while, and then it could go as low as 45.50 later this year, because we're overproducing in the United States. That's what the United States, by the way, that's our game plan over the next couple of years. Is as we transition, we're going to cadaver the oil market while not using it ourselves. The entire Western world is we're going green. We're using renewables. We're going to have as many electric cars and that kind of shit as we can. Use fuel oil for things that we need it for, like airplanes and shit like that, but nowhere else. And then the rest of the world, like the developing world, will need it. Africa, India specifically, will help them get some. But the only way we're ever going to make a dent in the imperialists of the world genuinely, like Russia, like the Saudis to some degree, like China, is by undermining the oil market, period. Just getting out of it. Just saying, learning our lesson that we should have learned 30 fucking years ago, to stop using a product that is mainly made by awful people or sold by awful people, and just get out of that business. And as soon as you do, the demand goes down. Everybody thinks that's the weird part. Like, if you look at Bloomberg these days, everybody's like, the economy is strangely resilient, and yet oil prices are going down and futures are going down because of consumption, but because they're acting like COVID never happened, and they're acting like the Ukraine war had the exact impact they were saying. So they're operating on the premise that they sold last year, that this was going to all be caused, like the Russian, we're going to jack the oil price up and this whole market's going to fuck everybody. And then when it didn't, they're still using the $200 a barrel thing in their calculations. And then when the number doesn't come up based on reality, they're like, what the fuck happened here? And that's because they're mass off.
I had a recent brunch with a German journalist friend of mine who works for ARD, German broadcaster. And I said, walk me through all this kind of like German politics and stuff, something I am not an expert in. Explain to me, this relationship, this how Germany has approached it. and I go back to Nord Stream, and in the Nord Stream 2 thing, when I was having this conversation to him, was to me, it felt like almost like an intervention to your buddy who's got a bad, narcotics habit.
Yeah.
And you're like, we're going to cut the supply off. And my friend kind of laughed and said, in essence, yeah, that's kind of what happened, because we were getting, there were a lot of people who were concerned about in Germany, but it was openly discussed in Germany and in German politics, this whole thing of like, we are becoming incredibly dependent on a resource from a very volatile and unreliable and unpredictable source, meaning the Russians. So, aside from who blew up the thing, which we're now seeing more and more evidence from the Scandinavians about more and more Russian ships that were in the area when the Nord Stream 2 blew up. But aside from who did it, and I know it does make a difference, because there's this issue of provocation, and was the West provoking and forcing Germany, did America force Germany by blowing up Nord Stream 2? Blah, 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 blah. Fine. I come from a perspective of Nord Stream 2 should never have actually happened.
Right.
Gerhard Schroeder, the former chancellor of Germany, was on the board of Gazprom, for God's sakes.
Yes.
I mean, come on, man. He went into, there was this nasty, incestuous, dirty relationship between Germany and Russia, between Berlin and Moscow. And it was corrupt, and it was ugly, and it was short-sighted.
And it was part and parcel to the undermining strategy that Russia was doing with Burisma and the gas and oil program, the companies in Ukraine, that Germany didn't want Ukraine to stand on its own as a gas provider that it might have to pay a real fee to, when Russia is going, we'll slip you the oil at a lower fee with the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. You'll get it at a cheaper level, and you can do what India's doing with some of the oil it has.
Volume.
Yes, and sell it someplace else.
Well.
Right. And you won't ever have to compete economically with Ukraine. If Ukraine stands on its own 2 feet, it will kick your ass because of the amount of resources it has and the raw materials it has available to it for both tech and for the energy industry. We'll keep it on its back heels all the time, and you'll move ahead. And that level of corruption, that type of like gutting the oil and gas industry in that they were attempting to do, where especially when it comes to, the story about Hunter Biden and how dare he and blah, blah, blah. And I've said this many times. If I put a gun to somebody's head and said, you have your life savings and you have to invest it before Hunter Biden is involved in Burisma or after, when do you do it? Because before he shows up, it's totally corrupt and it's being gutted by Russians and arguably probably their German partners. After, it's largely a functioning company. It takes it a while to get on its feet, but it's producing oil and gas like it's supposed to. It's building pipelines and it's making money. That's and for it to be, you would think the corruption part would be the other way around. That once he showed up, they stopped doing all that shit and money just kept getting funneled out of the country.
I mean, I have said so many times, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you, but in the years between 2014 and the Maidan Revolution and the ongoing war in Donbass and this current full-fledged war, so, 2022, between that period of time, I came here regularly, once a year at least.
Right.
And I would go back to my friends in London, or I would talk to people around the globe, and I would say, Kiev reminds me of what I envision North Africa was like during Vichy France. When this place was filled with dodgy people doing dodgy stuff. Everybody and not, I mean, there were Americans, there were Germans, there were French, there were take your pick. And people were doing shady stuff, and you never quite knew who was doing what. And the Russians were still coming here. Remember, I mean, this was, you could still come here as a Russian or be a Russian, have Russian business ties. and still be fine, even though Donbass was, an active war zone. There was still stuff going on here where, the Russians were all over the place, and it was like Rick's place in Casablanca. I mean, there were Nazis, there were French, Liberty, there were the Vichy were there. I mean, everybody. It was this very, very seedy.
Well, the entire purpose of the Russian system was to make it the Wild West, make it the Wild West, so only sort of criminal endeavors can survive, and anybody who tries to straighten this place out gets knocked on their ass. Don't worry, Robert. We'll bring that up in just a moment. You too, Javier. We'll bring that part of it up in a second.
The Burmese executives. So this Burmese.
Yeah, no, it was a really murky, weird place, Kiev, between 2014 and 2022, because it was
right.
You knew that there were guys here with suitcases full of money, trying to manipulate things and trying to, nobody wanted to go to a full-fledged war. Russia was still trying to exert its influence and hoping, I think foolishly, to try and, kind of regain, to try and put some sort of, pro-Russian political group in power and ultimately maybe a president.
Right.
And I mean, that was ridiculous. That was their folly, but it was a very, very weird place. So I don't know how we got onto the topic of that, but Kiev was because of the Russians
and the Germans working together
and everybody had their own. Yes, everybody had their own like political objective. Everybody had their goal. Everybody had their the OSCE, for example,
right.
Was here, and there are there's heavy criticism of the OSCE and the UN monitoring that happened under Minsk, because nobody wanted to actually admit that there were repeated violations of Minsk. Yes, on the Ukrainian side, but by and large on the Russian side of thing, and the Russian proxies, they were disproportionately breaking Minsk. But the OSCE for sure, and arguably the UN, because the UN actually had Russians on their team, never called anybody out on it, because if you called anybody out on it, Minsk falls apart, and then everybody tried very hard to not have this war happen. The Europeans, not least of which. And so they turned a blind eye to a lot of stuff that happened, or they didn't report stuff that happened during the Minsk period. But there were all these machinations going on, especially here in Kiev. And so it was this really, and now that's all gone away. The Europeans, the NATO alliance is solidified. Russia is screwed. And Ukraine is a completely mobilized, unified country with one singular purpose in mind, and that is to get the fucking Russians out of here. They're never going to be able to have a proper,
there you go,
prosperous country.
Can you hear that?
Barely.
Okay, it might be a little quiet on your. Yeah, that's.
No, I've heard him say it.
Yeah. Oops.
They call it Burisma.
They say pronounce it Burisma. Yeah.
I had a beat off.
Moron.
Yeah.
They don't like the gas.
I put in a bunch that I don't like a gas. He has.
Where's Dick? Hi, Dick. Do we like Dick? Yes.
What?
All right. So I'm just making your job a little bit harder. I have to be able to cut the reality with a little bit of comedy.
The man's a moron. The man is a moron. And the man was put into office by the Russians.
That's right.
We're going to be appointing very pro-crime judges.
At least at certain points, he told the truth. So, Jesus. Yeah. Now let's see. We got like 9 minutes left in the show today, and there's a couple of things. Obviously, lots of fires, and I think we agree that most of what we're seeing is a precursor attack on essentially the Russian the positions leading into what's going to be in the next couple of weeks. And I think you're right that it will be after the 9th, so that they won't have their big rah-rah day.
There are those who say that it might launch before the 9th. I don't think things are ready yet, but I mean,
if they were, I don't know that they would tell anybody.
No, true. And I don't want to know, frankly.
Yeah, right.
I'm okay not knowing. As long as the offensive is successful, that's all I care about. But May 9th for the Russians is an incredibly important day. I mean, it is this. We've talked about this in the past as well.
Right.
For the Russians, the Second World War has transcended history. It's religion now. It's mythology. It's identity. It's religion. It's everything. The Second World War is all to them. So if something were to launch before May 9th, it would play into that narrative. It would, for better or worse. And the Ukrainians know it very well. So I don't think it's going to happen before May 9th. The ground is not ready. The shaping operations that I think we're seeing internally in Russia, they're not completed yet. And also, in addition to that, don't rush. Do it right. There's an old U.S. Army saying, which I've adopted into my life, and it basically goes. And I might be paraphrasing here loosely, but is steady. What is it? It's slow is steady. Steady is fast.
Yeah, in Kung Fu we say slow is accurate, accurate is fast.
Right. You do it right.
Don't rush it.
You do it with purpose, and you do it deliberately. You do it steady. You get you get your head right. You get all your ducks in a row, and then you go. Yeah, and I think that's what we're seeing here now. And nobody, the worst. And I'll reiterate myself. I'll repeat myself here. The worst thing that could happen for Ukraine is for them to launch this, this offensive, this counteroffensive, or this offensive, whatever you want to call it, and for it to be a disaster. For them to get bogged down, for them to all the equipment turns out not to be very good, and tactics and all the rest of it, and they get repulsed. That would be the worst thing for the Ukrainians. And so nobody wants to see that happen. So get it right, do it once, do it overwhelmingly, and then we can see where things go. But I'm okay if they take their time. I don't think we need to rush before Victory Day, May 9th. So
I think giving them something to rally around on that date wouldn't make sense either. What you want them to do is deal that date should for them be a reminder of how much bullshit they've put themselves through over the last year, and not, okay, this is our last chance to try and win this, which is how they'll feel if there's an attack before the 9th. So I think they're going to, I think the idea that it comes on the 10th.
Attack before the 9th, the Russian power elite can always use the narrative of, we didn't finish the Second World War. We need to, and you can be a participant in this great legacy of the Second World War. It would, to my mind, I think it would be counterproductive, and it would feed into Russian propaganda. And also, and again, just to reiterate, the weather is definitely changing. We're having some lovely days, and the sun is out. It's not nearly as cold. I'm sure there will be more rain before spring is over. But the ground is not. It's not ready. It's not ready. You're talking about moving a lot of armor,
heavy stuff on wet soil,
heavy stuff on wet soil. So I don't think it's going to happen. But what I do think will happen when it is eventually launched, and I'm talking to all my colleagues and my friends and stuff here on the ground, it's going to get nuts. It's going to get cities are going to be attacked by Russia. Russia is going to retaliate the only way it can, and that's by just indiscriminate blowing shit up. There's going to be a lot of dead soldiers. Ukraine's death toll is going to go through the roof. Russia's death toll is going to go.
According to the White House, latest reports by the White House, by their numbers, Russia lost a fifth of its fighting force just fighting for Bakhmut, which is insanity.
Crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy. But there's also reports out of the Pentagon of expectations of like really high casualty rates. Everybody's expecting a lot of death.
Yes,
this summer, and as awful as it is, and I'm here. I'm standing with the Ukrainian people. I'm standing with the Ukrainian army. Nobody, nobody wants this to happen. At least of which the Ukrainians themselves. But this is their 1776 moment. This is either they win this war or they go back into subjugation by Moscow, and nobody can accept that here in Ukraine, and nor should they. This, Russia's had its time here. It's time for independence and self-governance, and so as for those of you who have been following, me here, and I thank you very much. But if there's one thing I can relay to you before we wrap up here, is that as awful as these images are going to be, and they're going to be bad, just get ready for it. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be violent. It's going to be vicious. And a lot of people are about to die. But the Ukrainian people know that if they don't do it, they're going to. This is centuries.
This is, and this is also centuries just all of them.
And centuries to come. It's everything. They have to win. They have to. Otherwise, they're going to be another little vassal state from a country that only believes in vertical power structures. And I mean, I would say this about Ekaterinburg or Vladivostok, just as much as I would say it about Kiev. Moscow must change the way it deals with power. Russia has to do a lot of hard work internally to become a functioning country. And it's no wonder that Ukraine has said, go fuck yourself. We're out of here. So as awful as the images that we're about to see, I assure everybody who's watching or listening, the vast majority of Ukrainians, as heartbroken as they are, as tragic as all of this is, losing friends, losing family, losing everything, living in a country where you can't make any plans, living in a country where you're constantly under threat by attack, and somebody's out there trying to kill you, for God's sakes. But there's still what keeps people getting up in the morning and saying, no, fuck you. If you come, I will pick up a weapon. There's that attitude still exists very strongly, that if our offensive goes wrong and you start rolling tanks through our cities, we're going to start chucking Molotov cocktails at you. Grandmothers, grandfathers, women, children, everybody. This country is unified. They cannot lose this fight. And so as awful as it's going to be, the Ukrainian people, and a vast majority of them, are still like, it's do or die.
It is genuinely a revolutionary war for them. Now, I'm going to end on this before we hold on. It is before we lose you. I would like to say happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy belated birthday, dear Philip. Happy birthday to you.
I had a beat off.
I just wanted to say, everybody in the chat room wanted to wish you a happy birthday, both on Monday when it was. Your birthday was Monday, right? And save it up to sing that to you on the actual day. Yes.
They always have a nice parade for me in Moscow. That was my old joke when I lived in Moscow.
Right.
Oh, it's so lovely. They have a nice parade for me. Of course, it's International Workers' Day. So.
Right.
Well,
and you always end up working on your birthday. So
I have to admit it was bittersweet. I know we're wrapping up here. Yeah, I know. And I appreciate it so much. But I have to. I'm not going to lie. It was bittersweet. This is my second birthday in Ukraine, a country I love deeply, that's at war, and I just don't want to. I don't know if I have it in me, frankly, to
have
go
it
through
in.
a third one. So, when you get these moments and times where you can kind of bookmark experiences,
Yes.
this has been now my second birthday in Ukraine, and it's just, the war. I really don't want to go through a third one. I really don't.
Well, I don't think you will, and I think
to win with a Ukrainian.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it will either.
We're gonna have a party for you in Chicago for the next one.
Yep.
That's what I insist. So, anyways, thanks for hanging out, brother. I will see you on Saturday.
All right, guys.
Stay safe.
Yep.
Keep us posted.
Drop me a line when we can have a little chat offline. By the way.
Tomorrow, like during the day, I think I'm fairly open. Some stuff shuffled around, so I'll try and do it for then. So, anyways, appreciate it, brother. Be safe.
All right, guys.
We'll see you soon.
Everyone.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody, for joining me for Hal Sparks Mornings, Mega Worldwide. Don't forget to like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. Patreon.com/Hal Sparks. Or, of course, you can subscribe on Twitch, twitch.tv/Hal Sparks. If you have Amazon Prime, it doesn't cost you a dime. Just saying. Yes, tomorrow is Star Wars Day. It's May the 4th. So tomorrow, May the 4th be with you. Always. It's no use, Luke. If you'd have been here, you'd have been killed too. And the droids would now be in the hands of the Empire. Only Imperial stormtroopers are so precise. Oh, he's not dead. Not yet, anyway. He's me. So, yes, may the 4th be with you, always. And I will see you guys tomorrow, later on this afternoon, because I do have another show today. And I'm going to try and figure out... yes, Flint. I'll show you kind of what I'm working on when I'm done.
They said, oh...
Yeah, there's. I was trying to find one in particular. This one.
Where's Dick? Hi, Dick. Do we like Dick? Yes. What?
All right, and then let's see. There was one.
Action replays in magnified fortune.
All right, that was in there. Oh, maybe I put it on the other page. That's what it is. Yeah.
Piece of malware called Q-Snatch.
We'll work it out. Anyways, love you guys. We'll figure it out. I'm just rediscovering my buttons. And until I do, I will. Well, if I may, ma'am, one more thing.
Jella boom.
Boom, yeah. I understand boom.
Bada boom.
Big. Yeah, big bada boom.
Big. Bada big boom. Big.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, big bada boom.
Bada boom.
Big. Boom. Big bada boom.
Oh, yeah, that's... When they gaze upon Yosemite, again, the words are conditions. Free health care for illegal. Look. I don't read, obviously. I've been involved in the two